Today I was hired to get rid of this terrible singer.
Happy birthday to you!
And we continue our mission to hunt down the Syndicate, where failure can end the entire campaign. When you think about Agent 47, you imagine him putting an end to the mega-tyrants of the world, stopping major catastrophes and taking out the worst of the worst. But the reality is, barcodes have got to eat, and our target today is Christina Dionisi, a singer hired by a politician running for mayor in the town of Sapienza, thinking that the entertainment will buy him some more votes. Unfortunately for Christina though, her voice has annoyed the old folks of this coastal retreat for the last time, and they banded their pensions together to retire her once and for all. Arriving at the concert, it took me around 5 seconds to make the single most important decision of my career. And that decision was that I was doing this job for free. Getting close to the target was easy enough, but now I had to come up with a way to end this concert quickly before my eardrums ruptured. My mind went through all the possible options. Could leap the barrier and send her packing. Too suspicious maybe. How about throwing a bunch of roses on stage? In a suitcase?
Hey, we need some help here, please get some—
At least the audience liked that one. Could go for a clean shot from a balcony. Surprisingly, I think we'd actually get away with that one. My personal favourite method for public assassinations, though, is the accident where wires are loosened, valves are opened, et voila! But I knew that getting away with it would require patience, of which I had none, leaving us with the only real option to dispose of our dreadful singer and the whole reason I bought this suitcase in the first place, the rubber ducky. While the instinct of many an assassin would be to flee the scene, the initiated among us know that it is better to stay and drink in the fear, because all trained security in the perimeter would be scouring for guilty-looking suspects. But when they looked at me, all they saw was relief. The job was a roaring success, and all I had to do was wait for things to settle down before slipping out. But that's when my day took an unexpected turn. Yoink! While our simpleton thief had no idea who he just stole from, he must have felt the glimmer of my golden suit and ditched the case as quickly as he could.
I see the dragon!
Unfortunately for him, the damage was already done, and I wasn't leaving Italy until I taught some manners to this insolent bandit. Turned out that we would also be adding personal space violations to the rap sheet of our case thief, and sadly for him, I happened to have a photographic memory and was here 5 hours before everyone else, meaning that I saw this scoundrel arriving on his scooter. I began to extract my revenge by liberating some oil from his little putt-putt bike, and just as expected, it ruffled some feathers. However, our petty thief's evening plans had a monkey wrench thrown in them when I lured him to the sewer with a monkey wrench. Before anything else got out of hand, I decided to find out if our plunderer regretted what he'd done, so the best place to ask for forgiveness would be the house of our Lord, and I graciously agreed to hear his confession. Which never came, so a spot of humbling was in order. Fortunately, nobody witnessed our soiree to the sewers, and I rubbed this criminal's nose in the dirt for his impudence, followed by the path of least resistance to the bathroom so he could wipe himself down. It was time for a disguise change, but I wasn't interested in hurting anyone else at this point. So by the time the pilferer regained consciousness, I was ready for him to witness the destruction of his personal property, and I was just in time to catch one of the security guards trying to snatch my case for themselves. We then returned to church, where my new friend seemed less and less interested in the lessons I had to teach him. Perhaps he'd forgotten what he'd done, so I asked him if stealing my suitcase rang any bells. It appeared that the Lord's justice had now been served, and the only thing left to do was say a silent prayer for the swindler and continue my mission of ridding the planet of all the rude people. Oh yeah, and defeating an evil syndicate. Well, we had a lot of work to do. This job sucked. It was cold, wet, and dark, and I needed to pee-pee. There were 6 syndicate targets, and I had to narrow them down to 1, all hiding in some kind of underground facility. But nature's call was becoming a scream, so I headed to the nearest restaurant to take a leak, but then momentarily forgot my exploding bladder when I stumbled upon a way into the lair of my enemies. There appeared to be a secret entrance, and I'd need to find a disguise to blend in, but then... Now I had 2 reasons to change my clothes. This place was incredible, but the sheer amount of personnel wandering around here meant that there was a high chance of combat, which is where the supplier came in handy, tucked inside the server room. I had 11,000 in cash, but with the sniper rifle costing 12, I went for the next best thing to tear this place apart, a shuriken. Still needed a disguise to get to our target, and fate wouldn't allow me to murder our supplier dead, so I had to settle for a security guard instead. It was time to limber up and get to work. Provided the others didn't turn around, this would be perfect! But of course they turned around and I hightailed it back through the peephole and hid in a cupboard. I could feel the judgment coming from my black market supplier, whose scrutiny would only increase after I took another stab at getting my new disguise.
Hey, you can't.
Again, he stared at me with those judgy eyes just after ripping me off for 9k for a shuriken! And what's worse was that he'd sold me one that went about the same speed as a frisbee.
No, nothing yet.
Finally, I had a uniform to freely walk around this facility, but unbeknown to me, I found myself in a one-way system that ended up with me trapped in a room getting scanned. I frantically tried to think of an excuse for why I'd be carrying a shuriken, a screwdriver, and a flask of chloroform, but before I could, the scan was over and nobody cared. My first suspect of the 6 was through the next room, and I took a photo to match up the information given. It seemed like this could be the guy, but I wasn't about to take a peek at his hairy chest to search for a tattoo to be sure. This was worth the risk, and I put the frisbee to work. For once, I'd rolled the dice and gotten lucky. That is until I realised the game had actually crashed. But when I logged back in, I was relieved to find out that I hadn't failed the mission, but still had to suck it up and do it all over again. So back we went through the rain and the restaurant, no shuriken, dealt with the guards, meandered towards the scanner room, but this time, another suspect was here. Was it random? This guy had hair though, but I YOLO'd and put him to eternal rest, only for the game to crash again, I kid you not. It felt like the trigger was the same. Picking up an item that they dropped seemingly froze the game, so I logged back in. Rain, restaurant, shop, guards, ignore Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hello there.
Scan, followed the target through a doorway with a banana, hoping to inspire some fear with fruit. Unfortunately, it didn't knock him out, and he screamed for help.
Please! I need help! Whoa, please don't!
I'd eliminated my target, but my stealth career was over. Once again, I hid in the one place you'd never expect a gunman to be after such a massacre. What? And it paid off. I calmly walked out the front door, and there were no more incidents before I left the scene. 7 successful missions in a row with 2 leaders eliminated, I was awarded a sniper rifle for my efforts, and my next mission took me back to Sapienza, which for some reason was an alerted territory, meaning that if I failed this mission, the game was over. I went straight to the supplier feeling flushed with cash, only for him to have more things that I couldn't afford, but sometimes the best items cost the least.
Yikes.
Got myself a kitchen uniform because I'd heard rumours of illegal baking, which we'll get to shortly, but first I ran to the sound of a small crowd only to find that either our suitcase thief had a twin brother or he'd actually survived that ordeal from earlier. But seeing that he'd donated a coin to the street performer, I took that as compensation for his previous transgressions.
Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? That's my money!
Perhaps I'd come back later and... It seemed that one of my Syndicate targets was partial to street entertainment, so I set about finding a way to poison the water supply to make the jester too ill to continue. Hunting for rat poison in the kitchens, I spotted a culinary disaster. The fruit salad vomit cake from the previous episode had somehow returned, and whoever made these were clearly interested in dancing with the devil in the pale moonlight, because it has become my life's mission to prevent people from unleashing this terror on the galaxy. I need to calm down because I had a mission to complete and the master plan was underway with a little alchemy. Hopefully the green smoke wouldn't stop our performer from hydrating, and within moments he was puking in a bin with me ready to take to the stage. Which was when one of the Syndicate targets just happened to be walking by.
Hello, naked man? Where are your pants?
Was this a masterful strategy from Agent 47? Was it dumb luck? Either way, someone was getting their neck snapped today and the show would go on. Wasn't long before I realised that perhaps I should have killed the jester, as when he came around he'd spotted me in his work clothes, so I followed him upstairs to finish the job, which is when there was a glitch in the Matrix. Curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to know if this town was actually big enough for the both of us, but I was a little disappointed when he stepped aside to give me the main stage, which allowed me to lure the second Syndicate target with my S-tier performance skills. It was lamentable that the accuracy of the rubber ducky wasn't as intimate as I would have liked, but a job is a job. Coming to think of it, there were probably quieter ways I could have done this, but now I had a story to tell the grandkids. I'd saved the hardest target for last as they were hiding in an underground lair which was going to be more complicated than I thought, so the loot crate needed to contain something special for me to get to the finish line. I went for the big one, only because the name made it a bestseller in my mind. According to the blueprints, the quickest way to the Syndicate target was behind this wall, so it was just as well I brought along some Semtex. Whilst you might imagine that this would cause a terrible scene, nobody suspected the cook.
Search the area nice and tidy, gentlemen. Mind your blind spots.
Then all my dreams came true as our suitcase thief turned out to be moonlighting as a dirty smuggler, which justified putting him down once and for all. Tried to move the body and got caught, so I accelerated the timetable and descended to the enemy base. Remembering I'd paid 11,000 bucks for a fancy dagger, it was time to put it to use. I'd been scammed. The screwdriver was just as good, but now I had to find a way to entice my target away from two heavily armed guards, so I had to hope that the big one was all it claimed to be. Well, it was definitely annoying, I'd give it that, but it did the job, and our Syndicate lab rat came for a look, only to meet his end to a shiny Janbia. The mission was a success. All I had to do was step on the plane and it'd be over. The cake. Nothing left to do. The cake. Just get on board and fly away. The cake! My decision changed everything, and I went on a careless cake-fueled rampage. But I needed some proper punishment for those disrespectful bakers, and a wet fish would fit the bill. I raced towards the cake shop to save the lives of any would-be customers and dealt with things in the appropriate order. First the apprentice, then the master. I was unsure if the fall would eliminate that old fool, but I set my killer fish on him just to make sure. My work here was done, and the taste buds of Sapienza were saved. While the mission end screen gave me nothing but fails, I knew that a greater good had been served this day. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Later.